Incredible rescue. Witness the heartwarming moment a brave team saves a zebra from a python attack. The sun shone brightly on the bustling zoo, its vibrant colors reflecting the laughter of families enjoying a day filled with adventure. Children dashed from exhibit to exhibit, their excited cheers floating in the air like summer fireflies. Jake stood proudly at the entrance, a small smile on his face as he watched his daughter, Lily, laugh near the zebra exhibit with her friends. Daisy, their beloved zebra, played in the grassy enclosure, blissfully unaware of the chaos that loomed just beyond her familiar boundaries. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted. The crowd gasped collectively, eyes wide with horror as they witnessed the unthinkable. A massive python, slithering silently, breached Daisy's enclosure. Panic spread like wildfire, gripping the hearts of everyone present. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The instincts of a father and a zookeeper collided. A flood of fear and urgency rushed over him. Daisy was in danger, and so was his daughter. "Stay here, Lily," he called, adrenaline surging through him as he sprinted toward the chaos. He rallied his coworkers, including Helen, a veteran volunteer who had saved the day more times than she could count. The weight of her years pressed heavily on her shoulders, doubt creeping in as she watched the crowd's terror. "We have to act quickly," Jake shouted, his heart racing. "We can't let anyone get hurt." "Are we really going to get Daisy back?" Helen whispered, her voice trembling. The anxiety in her eyes nearly shattered his resolve. With each passing second, tensions mounted. They needed a plan, but fear had taken root in the air, choking hope. The crowd's murmurs grew increasingly frantic, a living backdrop to the storm of emotions inside Jake. How could he protect Daisy, the other animals, and Lily amidst this brewing tempest? "Jake, we can do this." Helen's voice emerged, breaking through the haze. As she looked at him, Jake locked eyes with Lily in the distance, her innocent smile fueled his fire. He beckoned to his team, channeling the desperate energy swirling around them. They moved with purpose, hearts pounding, overwhelmed yet determined. Just as they began to execute their daring plans, a sudden twist of chaos struck. A frantic movement, a surge of panic as Daisy reared away from the python. Fear bloomed in Jake's chest like a wildfire. "Don't lose hope," he shouted, rallying the team like a captain leading his crew through a storm. But doubt gnawed at them, clawing at the edges of their courage. The clock was ticking, they could feel the dread creeping toward them. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The evening shadows crept across the zoo, soaking the scene in a brooding uncertainty. Every moment felt heavier. They had to muster more than just their will, they had to confront their fears head-on. But just when hope flickered standing outside the enclosure, eyes ablaze with determination, Jake noticed a glimmer in Daisy's eyes, her resilience igniting a fire deep within him. If he could pull together the strength buried in their community, anything might be possible. Would it be enough to turn the tide in this desperate race against time? Jake's heart thundered as he braced for one last effort. The sky darkened, but a flicker of hope remained. What they did next could change everything. Jake's heart raced, every thump echoing the urgency of the moment. He could hear the unpredictable hisses of the python before him, each sound sending shivers through the gathered crowd. Just a few feet away, Daisy was still skittish, her eyes darting in fear. With each agitated stomp she made, Jake felt the tension in the air wrap tighter around him, a suffocating reminder of the stakes at hand. "Okay, team," he barked, voice slicing through the dread. "We need to distract the python, and Helen, you know the best way to do this." Helen nodded, her expression shifting from doubt to fierce focus. "Right. We need something loud and bright to draw its attention," she said, pointing to a nearby food stand where colorful balloons fluttered in the breeze. "We'll grab the balloons and make some noise," Jake instructed. I'll lead the charge, but we need to be quick. Racing toward the stand, Jake felt the spirit of every loved one he had ever fought for fill his chest. Lily's laughter, his community's hope, and Daisy's trusting eyes all surged within him like a tidal wave of courage. Grab as many as you can, he shouted, shoving the colorful balloons into Helen's arms as he yanked others free from their ties. Their bright hues were like splashes of confidence against the somber backdrop of fear. Together, they tied the strings of the balloons around sticks they found, fashioning makeshift banners of distraction. With balloons now soaring behind him, Jake waved his improvised devices, an absurd yet heartfelt effort to draw the python away from Daisy. "Over here, big guy," he called out, heart pounding. The python's head turned, curiosity piqued by the flurry of colors and the sound of Jake's voice. This was the moment. Jake took a deep breath, adrenaline surging through him as he carefully positioned himself between the reptile and Daisy. "Now!" he shouted, as Helen began to clap and stomp her feet. The whole team followed suit, creating an orchestra of sound that pierced through the gasp of the crowd. The python, caught in uncertainty, hissed as it turned fully toward them. Jake could barely believe the sight of it. Was it actually working? With the creature distracted, he signaled to a fellow zookeeper, Mark, who was ready with a net. "On 3. Jake yelled, gathering everyone's focus. 1, 2, 3. The team surged forward, throwing the net over the python. A struggle, a moment hanging in the air where time felt warped until finally, Mark pulled hard, securing the serpent. It writhed, droplets of sweat glistening on Jake's forehead, but they held firm. Daisy watched, her breathing slowing as she began to understand that her saviors were here. "Good girl, just stay there," Jake whispered softly, grounding his focus back on the zebra. As the python finally calmed, something deeper settled in Jake's chest. The crowd erupted into applause, not just for the rescue but for a unity forged amidst chaos. The palpable emotion wafted through the air like magic, familiar and warm, but just as relief washed over Jake, his eyes flickered to Lily. Her face, usually lit up with joy, was now clouded with something else. Fear? Concern? He instinctively wanted to rush to her, to ensure she was fine, yet he couldn't abandon his task. Before he could decide, he heard Lily's small voice pierce through the noise. "Dad! Look out!" His heart dropped, realization crashing upon him like a dark wave. The python was still thrashing beneath the net, and in a sudden desperate surge, it began to break free. What would happen next? How would he keep both Daisy and Lily safe? Panic shot through Jake like an electric current. The net was barely holding, and he could see the muscles of the python coiling and writhing with ferocity. He glanced back at Lily, her face a mask of fear, eyes wide and pleading. Every instinct screamed at him to protect her, yet he couldn't abandon Daisy. The zebra was still there, trembling in place, her trust hinging on Jake's actions. "Get back!" Jake yelled at the crowd, as they instinctively moved closer, curiosity mingled with horror. He wanted to shield Lily from the chaos but knew every moment mattered. The python jerked violently, the grip of the net loosening with each thrashing moment. Mark was struggling to keep it contained, sweat mingling with determination on his brow. "We have to do something, Jake. Now!" he shouted urgently. With renewed focus, Jake turned to Helen and the rest of the team. "We need to pull it tighter." "On 3, he commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around him. 1, 2, 3. They all leaned in, pulling the ropes of the net with all their strength. The python thrashed harder, its powerful body seeking freedom. Jake's heart raced as he gripped the net, feeling the tension run through his hands. They were fighting for not just the zebra, but for Lily, each second ticking down like a bomb. Daisy let out a distressed cry as if sensing the urgency. Jake's heart ached, knowing how much was at stake. He raised his voice, steady but commanding, "Daisy, stay still. You've got to trust me." The zebra's gaze locked onto his, and in that instant, he felt a connection, one that underscored his resolve. Lily's voice cut through, small yet fierce. "Dad." She pointed, her finger trembling toward the python's head, which was dangerously close to breaking free. Jake turned just in time. His chest tightened, and without thinking, he dove to his knees, securing the net with his body, drawing close to the serpent's writhing form. "Hold on!" he shouted, pushing down the rising panic within him, his actions driven by love and necessity. The crowd gasped. Moments felt like hours as Jake took a deep breath. "We can do this," he encouraged the team, his resolve lighting a fire in their eyes. They pulled again, and this time it felt different. The fear of losing everything, of letting down Lily, of failing Daisy, surged through him, and he pushed down on the python with all his might. Behind him, he heard voices blending into one another. "What if it gets free? Jake, be careful." But he couldn't think about that. Courage swelled within him, ready to face the beast. Suddenly, there was a quiet moment, just a pause where time stood still. Everyone held their breath, the tension in the air so thick it felt suffocating. The python's movements began to slow, its body finally recognizing its defeat. "Now, Mark!" Jake shouted, and with a decisive move, Mark secured the knot of the net. The crowd erupted into gasps of relief. Jake's breath was heavy, a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief, as he slowly raised his head to check on Lily. She was standing tall, eyes shining with pride now, despite the earlier panic. "Did you see that, Dad?" she exclaimed, and for a moment, the fear washed away. But even as Jake soaked in the moment, the python's eyes stared back at him, glimmers of wildness flickering painfully within. Just as peace settled, the serpent twisted again, thrashing one last time, threatening to break free. What would happen next? Would they finally subdue the python for good, or was the danger just beginning? Jake's heart sank as the python experienced one final surge of strength. The deep, primal instinct of survival kicked in, the snake thrashed with a ferocity that shocked everyone watching. Without skipping a beat, Jake's instincts flared one more time, and he pressed his weight down harder onto the already taut net. "Hold it! Hold it tight!" he yelled, feeling the energy ripple through the team behind him. He could hear the nervous whispers of the crowd edging closer, their breaths catching in their throats. The crowd's awe was palpable. Mark was right beside Jake, determination etched into his face as he pulled with every ounce of strength he had left. "We can't lose it now. Just a little longer," he shouted, his voice strained but resolute. Lily took a step forward, her small frame seemingly dwarfed by the chaos. Jake turned, meeting her worried gaze. "Stay back, Lily. Please," he called, forcing himself to sound calm. The last thing he wanted was for his daughter to see the danger inches away from them. But Lily didn't move. She held her ground, fear still present but mixed with a spark of courage. "Dad, I believe in you," she shouted, and her voice pierced through the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. Jake felt a rush of heat swell in his chest at her words. He drew strength from her faith in him. "Okay. Now. On 3. he shouted. The team readied themselves again, bracing for what they hoped would be the final push. 1, 2, 3. With a titanic effort, they yanked at the ropes, every muscle straining in a combined effort. Jake clenched his jaw, feeling the cord of the net digging into his palms, but he couldn't let go. The python, sensing the relentless pressure, let out a guttural hiss, but this time it was different. The thrashing slowed more noticeably. Jake stole a glance at Daisy, and he saw in her eyes a glimmer of hope. They were so close. Almost there. Mark yelled, his voice a mixture of exhilaration and desperation. The crowd began to cheer, their voices lifting the weight of the moment. Jake focused on the snake's mighty body, its flickering tongue tasting the air as if it could sense defeat. A wave of compassion washed over him. This creature was not simply a monster, it was a wild spirit, fighting against its own fear and instinct. Suddenly, in an astonishing twist of fate, the python relaxed. The hissing ceased as it surrendered, sinking into submission within the stronghold of the net. Jake, a wave of relief washing over him, saw Mark make quick work of securing the final knot, his movements confident and precise. The rattling tension faded from the air, and the crowd erupted into applause and cheers. The togetherness of their cheers felt like a communal heartbeat, pulse racing as they celebrated their unlikely victory. But as the excitement swelled around him, Jake felt a flicker of dread, a thought uninvited yet persistent in the back of his mind. Had they truly won, or was the battle only just beginning? Daisy remained still, shaken but aware, her eyes darting around as if the commotion outside the net would spiral out of control at any moment. And then there was the lingering stare from the python, a lingering intensity laced with unspoken understanding. Jake knelt down, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. "We did it," he whispered, almost to himself, the words trailing off. Looking back to Lily, he saw the light in her eyes and felt his heart swell, but he couldn't shake the suspicion that there was more to come. As they celebrated, there was still a question hovering in the air. What could they learn from this wild encounter? And what awaited them after the excitement faded? The cheers began to fade, laughter and shouts replaced by an uneasy silence. Jake glanced around, noticing that the crowd still buzzed with excitement, but he sensed an underlying tension. The python had surrendered, yet something didn't feel quite right. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The cheers turned into whispers filled with concern, eyes darting away from the commotion, glancing towards the tree line where shadows danced ominously. "Did you see that?" Mark's voice cut through the murmurs like a knife. His eyes widened as he pointed toward the dense foliage. "I think I just saw something move." Jake's heart quickened. He straightened, scanning the tree line where the chaos of the encounter seemed to pull a curtain over the forest's serenity. Adrenaline twisted in his stomach. Had they stirred something more dangerous? "Lily, stay close," Jake urged, knowing the unpredictability of nature now more than ever. With hesitant steps, she moved back towards him, but her eyes were glued to the woods, curiosity battling with caution. Jake let out a slow breath, trying to calm the growing unease inside him. The python may have been subdued for now, but this wasn't just a battle of man versus snake. It was a reminder of the wild that surrounded them, always watching and waiting. "Everyone, start securing the area," Jake commanded. The team, still riding the high of victory, now felt the urgency in his voice. They moved swiftly, their victory quickly replaced by a new mission, ensuring safety not just for themselves, but for each other and the crowd gathered. Daisy stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "What if there are more?" "We should check the perimeter," she suggested, her tone all business. Jake admired her resolve. Her focus was laser-sharp despite the earlier shock. A figure emerged from the trees, and the crowd gasped. It was an elder man from a nearby village, his gray hair wild and his face weathered. He carried a spear, but it wasn't drawn. Instead, he approached cautiously, his eyes locking onto the python now secured in the net. "Is it dead?" he asked, voice low, almost choked with emotion. "No, it's alive," Jake replied, standing his ground. "We managed to subdue it before anything happened." But he paused, looking around at the rest of the team and the crowd beginning to gather behind them. "What do you know about this snake?" The villagers exchanged murmurings. Jake felt the atmosphere tightening again. The elder stepped closer, fear creeping into his features. "The python is sacred. It is a part of the balance. If you've caught one, it could mean disruption. There are forces in the forest that might respond." Jake's heart sank, dread pooling in his stomach. They thought they had triumphed, but now it sounded like they'd unknowingly become part of something bigger, something they weren't equipped to understand. "What do we do?" Lily's voice broke through the heavy silence, tinged with fear. Jake knelt beside her, putting a hand on her shoulder. He wanted to reassure her, tell her everything would be all right. But deep down, he felt a storm brewing, one they may not be able to control. "Let us move the python away from the village," Jake suggested, clenching his jaw. "Maybe that will keep everyone safe." But as the team began to set plans in motion, the elder's voice echoed behind them, laden with foreboding. "It may not be enough. Something comes when the balance is disrupted." A single shiver ran down Jake's spine as the first whispers of wind rustled through the trees, chillier than before. The adventure was unraveling into an even deeper mystery. If they hadn't finished their battle with the python, what lay ahead in the forest's dark embrace? As shadows flickered and a silence draped over them, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that a new threat was stirring. What had they awakened in their quest to protect? Jake's mind raced as he surveyed the scene. The elder's warning echoed in his ears, mixing with the anxious murmurs of the crowd. People had gathered closer, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy in the air. Some held their children tight, while others glanced nervously toward the tree line, waiting for the next shoe to drop. "All right, team," Jake shouted, attempting to cut through the tension. "Daisy, Mike, check the area near the riverbank. Let's make sure nothing else has come down from the forest. Mark, you stay with the elder and gather more information about the python. Lily, stick with me." Lily nodded, her small hand gripped tightly around Jake's fingers. Despite the fear clouding her expression, he could see her determination. She wanted to be part of this, to confront whatever threat loomed. As Daisy and Mike moved off toward the river, Jake turned to the elder. "What else can you tell us?" He sensed urgency in the elder's demeanor, his fear palpable, as he scanned the trees for signs of movement. "The python's actions are just the beginning," the elder replied, his voice low but firm. "When one part of the balance is disrupted, nature reacts. Creatures stirred from their slumber could become aggressive. You've awakened more than just the python." Chills danced down Jake's spine. "But how do we restore the balance?" "The answer may lie in the heart of the forest," the elder said, his gaze drawn deeper into the shadows. "You must return the python to its sacred place. Only then will you stand a chance." Unsure what to say, Jake looked at Lily. "A lot is riding on us, but do you think we can do it?" She looked up at him, eyes wide but sparkled with determination. "Yes, we can. We have to." With a sense of newfound resolve, Jake took a deep breath, gathering the team. "Listen up. We're not just moving the python, we're making sure it returns home. We'll need a stretcher and to stay focused. If anything happens, stay together." Just as they brought forth the stretcher made from improvised supplies, an unsettling rustling erupted from the forest. The crowd gasped again, and Jake's heart dropped. Was something coming? He wasn't sure whether to prepare for a fight or hide. Out from the dense canopy came two shining eyes, followed by the outline of a large figure. A bull elephant emerged, standing tall and formidable. It trumpeted loudly, its massive body exuding both power and a hint of distress. "He senses something is wrong," someone in the crowd shouted. Jake felt a pang in his chest. "It's a warning," he realized. The elephant stood protectively before the villagers, glancing back toward the forest, as if urging them to heed the call of nature. The elder stepped forward. "We must act quickly. The path to the sacred place lies just beyond the elephant. We need to appease the guardians in the forest." Feeling the weight of their determination, Jake made a snap decision. "Let us go. We'll follow the elephant. Everyone, stay close." As the crowd began to move cautiously behind the elephant, Jake could barely think straight. Every step felt charged with the presence of unseen forces, and the air grew heavier as they delved deeper into the emerald shadows. A sudden rustle from the underbrush stopped them cold. Jake froze in place, heart racing as he stared at the bushes. Was it just a small animal, or something larger, something more ominous? The mysterious tension around them grew thicker. What awaited them in the depths of the forest as they ventured further into the chaos? Would they truly be able to restore the balance, or would they provoke an even greater danger? Jake's ears buzzed as he strained to hear any sound beyond the rustling plants. The elephant, strong and noble, shifted slightly, its enormous trunk swaying gently as it regarded them. With every heartbeat, the tension thickened, igniting a cocktail of fear and hope in Jake's gut. "Stay behind the elephant," he whispered urgently to the villagers. He could feel Lily's small hand grip his arm tighter, her eyes darting around. "Please, let us just get through this," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. They needed to move. The elephant trumpeted again, a sound filled with echoed strength and warning. Slowly, it led the way, the brush clearing just a bit as the sunlight dipped and filtered through the treetops. The villagers edged forward cautiously, hearts pounding in unison. As they ventured deeper, Jake felt whispers of dread winding around him. That rustling noise had returned, louder this time. It wasn't just the wind or a mere animal. A predator was lurking close by, sensing their intrusion. Jake paused, catching Daisy's worried gaze as she rushed back from the riverbank. "I didn't find anything, Jake," she said, breathless. "But I heard something big moving over there." She gestured toward the shadows, and Jake shifted uneasily. The words of the elder echoed in his mind, warning him of creatures stirred from slumber. "Everyone, stay alert," he instructed, summoning every ounce of authority he could. "Daisy, Mike, fan out. Just keep your distance." The air grew thick with apprehension. The piercing silence held its breath, and for a moment, it felt as if nature itself was watching, ready to unleash its fury or grant mercy. Then, another rustle turned into a loud snapping sound. From the darkness, a sleek form shot out, an enormous python, scales glinting menacingly in the dappled sunlight, its mouth agape as if ready to strike. There was no time to scream. "Run!" Jake shouted, adrenaline surging. The villagers scattered, some instinctively hiding behind the elephant. It shifted, alarmed, as the massive serpent coiled and prepared to attack. Jake felt Lily's grip slip and turned his head quickly to find her frozen in shock. "Lily!" he called, panic bursting within him. Before he could reach her, the python lunged forward, and he saw the world slow as he leaped to pull her away. With a thunderous roar, the elephant charged, its bulk moving like a force of nature, scattering vegetation and ground debris as it barreled toward the python. Jake prayed it would be enough. Everyone needed that powerful guardian on their side. As the elephant collided with the serpent, a flurry of writhing scales and powerful limbs erupted. The scene unfolded like something from a dream, nature at war, battling instincts and chaos. Jake moved instinctively, scooping Lily into his arms and darting behind the colossal figure. She clung to him, tears welling in her eyes. "Is it going to be okay?" Her voice trembled. He began but faltered, the sight of the ferocious struggle before him giving him no assurance. It seemed like forever, but he could feel their spirits hovering, waiting for the outcome. Finally, with a tremendous trumpeting, the elephant pushed the python back into the underbrush, its strength undeniable. It trumpeted fiercely, asserting its dominance. Hushed silence fell. Breathless, they watched as the python slithered away, defeated for now. The crowd erupted in murmurs, their fear ebbing into tentative relief. They had witnessed a raw display of nature, a protective moment that felt almost sacred. "Is it safe?" Jake exclaimed, rolling his shoulders as he held Lily close. "I think so," she replied, tears now mixing with awe. "But what do we do next?" With adrenaline still coursing through his veins, Jake turned his gaze back toward the dense forest. "We continue. The sacred place awaits us, and the balance must be restored." A determined look settled over his features as he clasped Lily's hand. As they resumed their journey, a new rustle echoed from behind them. This one was different. It felt almost like a call, unmistakable. What lay hidden in the shadows of the forest? Would they find the help they desperately needed, or uncover something darker that would threaten them all? The rustling behind them grew louder, almost rhythmic, echoing between the trees like a whisper shared among friends. Jake halted, the tension creeping back around them like fog. He held Lily tightly, her small body pressing against his side, while the rest of the villagers paused, eyes widening with a mix of curiosity and dread. "What was that?" someone dared to ask, their voice barely a whisper. Jake scanned the surroundings, heart pounding as adrenaline circled through him once again. It was no longer just a distant sound, it felt close, personal, and for a moment, he could almost sense it breathing. "Stay close," he commanded, his voice steady despite the fast-beating drum in his chest. They needed to remain united, even as fear threatened to splinter their resolve. In the half-light of the forest, a shape slowly emerged from the dense underbrush. Jake aimed his focus, and relief flooded through him as the figure of a zebra came into view. But that relief quickly turned to alarm as he noticed the panic in its eyes and the way it pranced restlessly, scanning for an escape. Just behind it, partially hidden, Jake spotted the sinister slope of the python, its tongue flicking in and out, tasting the air. The sight sent a surge of urgency through him. "We have to help it," he exclaimed, turning to the group. They were all looking at him, waiting. The air felt electric with shared fear and determination. "Are you crazy?" Daisy interjected, her face pale. "It'll be slaughtered." "But we can't just stand here," Jake argued, his voice rising above their fears. "That zebra needs us. We can't let the forest take another life today." Despite the trepidation, Jake's words were wrapped in a flame of hope. He thought of the stories of the elders, how they once lived in harmony with all the creatures around them, how they protected those in need. Wasn't that their duty now? He motioned to the elephant, who was still nearby, surveying the scene. "If we can distract the snake, the zebra might get away." His heart raced at the plan forming in his mind. The villagers looked at one another, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. But this collective hope built like a fire, igniting bravery in their hearts. "Okay," Mike finally said, stepping forward. "Let us do this." With a shared nod, they moved. Jake led the way, his mind focused solely on that zebra. It was a wild animal, but trapped in a battle for survival. Now, it was their turn to fight back. "On my mark," he whispered urgently, positioning himself behind the elephant. The rest of the villagers followed suit, forming a line of defenders. The elephant sensed the impending conflict as it shifted, its massive bulk ready for the confrontation. At Jake's signal, they all yelled, a cacophony of shouts and screams aimed at startling the python. The echoes bounced off the trees, and the sound was thick and wild in the air. The zebra hesitated but then dashed forward, chasing freedom just as they intended. The python recoiled, its glistening scales shimmering ominously as it redirected its focus towards the noise. With a blur, it struck, but the elephant charged forward with a loud trumpeting, putting itself between the python and the fleeing zebra. Jake's heart raced, caught in the terrifying dance of life and death happening before him. The villagers moved as one, energized by every heartbeat, every breath of hope. They were going to save that zebra, they had to. But then, as the elephant held its ground, a new sound pierced the air, a cry from the shadows, one that sent a chill down Jake's spine. What more danger lay hidden in the forest, waiting for them to stumble into its grasp? Would their bravery lead to victory, or would they find themselves facing another threat that could shatter their fragile hope? The cry echoed through the trees, sharp and urgent. Jake felt his stomach drop. He instinctively pulled Lily closer, shielding her from whatever else might emerge. The villagers huddled around him, hearts pounding, their breaths caught in their throats. "Did you hear that?" Someone whispered, voice trembling. From the shadows, two gleaming eyes blinked back at them. Jake's heart raced. This was unlike any danger they had faced. Was it just the python, or something more? He wished fervently that he had the answers. Then, out of the brush stumbled another animal, a young deer, skittish and frightened, its legs quivering beneath it. The villagers gasped, realizing that this creature was now caught between them and the prowling python. It paused, glancing back as if sensing the slithering menace behind it. "Jake." Lily clutched his hand, her tiny fingers squeezing tight. "What do we do?" He took a shaky breath. "We can't let them take another life." At that moment, he felt like a leader, a protector, an overwhelming burden that pushed him forward. "Back to back," Jake shouted, rallying the villagers as they formed a protective circle around the zebra and the deer. "We can't let it take another victim. Get ready." Together they yelled, hoping to imitate the commotion that had previously distracted the python. The elephant trumpeted again, its massive form a shield in front of him. But then came the cacophony of rustling moving through the branches. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. Jake turned slowly, his breath hitching as another shape emerged, this time larger than the others, a wild boar, snuffling and grunting, eyes wild with fear. It joined the fray, scraping its hooves against the ground, ready to charge at whatever came next. "More animals!" Mike shouted, disbelief coursing through his voice. Jake could hardly process what this meant. A rescue was turning into a rally of the desperate. The sound swelled like a storm, as if nature itself was fighting back against the python's hunger. Hope ignited within him, brighter than he dared to imagine. With animals gathering, there was now a chance to defend. They just needed to hold the line long enough for the zebra and deer to find an escape. He turned to the villagers. "We need to make a path. The zebra and deer can dash while we distract that snake." Heartbeats quickened, and they nodded in agreement. This wasn't just about two animals anymore. This was about standing united, drawing strength from their fear and transforming it into courage. Then, suddenly, the python lunged again, its sinuous body coiling with deadly intent. It was a nightmarish blur, teeth glinting in the dim light. But the elephant stood tall, momently blocking its advance. They had to act now or risk losing everything they fought for. "Go!" Jake shouted, adrenaline surging. He turned toward the zebra, beckoning it with urgency. As the zebra hesitated, a glimmer of instinct sparked in its eyes. It dashed forward, the deer following suit. As they bolted through the chaotic scene, Jake felt a surge of hope, but it was short-lived. The predator struck again, targeting the one remaining vulnerable spot, the fleeing deer. "Lily, cover your eyes!" Jake yelled, panic filling his chest. The air felt thick. He could hardly watch as the tension and vulnerability pressed in on them from every side. Would they succeed in saving these creatures, or would they crumble beneath the weight of their fear? The python pursued, the chase intensifying as Jake readied himself for the unknown. What could he do next to protect them all? As the python lunged at the fleeing deer, Jake's heart raced, a surge of adrenaline fueling him forward. "No!" he shouted, the sound echoing desperately in the chaos. The python was swift, its massive body a glistening blur as it coiled and struck. Just as it reached out, the elephant, its protective instincts flaring, lunged again, blocking the path to the deer. Jake felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. The elephant's thunderous care broke through the tension, keeping the menacing creature at bay. The commotion stirred the other animals, they sensed safety in numbers. With a commanding shout, Jake gathered the villagers. "Stay on guard. Block the python's advance. We need to hold the line." Hearts pounded in unison, their fear coalescing into a fierce determination. Drawing closer to the fleeing zebra and deer, Jake felt the resolve of the crowd surge with him. He turned, motioning for everyone to create a barricade, chairs, objects, anything they could find to reinforce their shield. "Now!" he yelled, spurring them to act. The line of villagers formed a united front, armed with makeshift defenses, a resolute wall of courage against the pulse of danger. The energy thrummed through their collective spirit. Each held their breath, eyes fixed on the python. With each tense second, the atmosphere thickened. The python hissed and twisted, testing their defenses, but it was met with a firm resistance. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him as he noticed the zebra and deer safely dash into the brush, their uncertainties transformed into instinct and speed. "Keep pushing it back," he shouted, feeling empowered by their fight. The crowd grew bolder, rallying together. The elephant trumpeted fiercely, acting as a shield, its enormity a beacon of strength amidst the chaos. Suddenly, with one last furious thrash, the python recoiled, its form diverting into the underbrush. The villagers collectively gasped, tension lifting as they recognized that they had fought off the immediate danger. But before Jake could rejoice, the elder's warning echoed powerfully in his mind, "It is only the beginning. Everyone, stay alert." Jake urged, breathless, glancing into the shadows. They had protected each other, and so many creatures, unfurling hope through their courage. As they began to regroup, the air changed again. The wild sounds of the forest shifted, grounding them with an unsettling intimacy. The villagers whispered to one another, eyes darting around, aware that they had stepped into something deeper. "Where do we go from here?" Mark asked softly, tension still lingering on his brow. Jake turned to the elder, who had remained observant throughout. "What comes next?" he pressed, determination flooding his tone. "We need to know how to restore balance." The elder nodded slowly, his face etched with age and wisdom. Follow the elephant, protect the sacred path, but the forest bears witness. Respect its will, or the repercussions will fall on us all. Jake took a deep breath, determination swelling inside him once more. Then that's our path. We take the python back, no matter what it takes. With renewed drive, Jake rallied the villagers. Together, we can restore the balance. Let us help the elephant guide us. They moved carefully forward, the elephant leading them deeper into the forest. Lily held his hand tightly, her small body pulsing with energy. We can do this, Dad, she declared. Her innocent faith ignited warmth and strength in his heart. Moments passed, and the dense foliage enveloped them, shadows weaving mysterious patterns. The weight of nature settled around them, amplifying their purpose. The animals were now a part of their journey, even the python had become a crucial piece of the delicate balance. Finally, they approached a clearing, the air shifting into something sacred, quiet like a hold of breath. In the center lay a small shrine, marked by ancient carvings and adorned with offerings from elders long past. The elephant halted, an unspoken understanding guiding it closer. Place the python here, the elder commanded gently. Jake reached down, moving with care as he cradled the net-ensnared python, feeling its warmth against his skin. The villagers held their breath, their spirits woven into this moment of transformation. As he laid the python down, a deep stillness enveloped them. The wild began to still, the forest exhaling gently as if responding to their act of reverence. The python breathed, serpentine scales glimmering. The tension that once encircled it dissipated. Staring into its gaze, Jake realized this creature was a bridge to the forest's heartbeat. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice fragile but filled with a greater understanding. We never meant to disrupt. And in that stillness, a sudden glimmer of acceptance flickered in the python's eyes. It was a passage, a grace offered back to the wild, inspired by their strength and the sacred energy swirling around them. The tension in the air transformed, lifting as the creatures of the forest began to emerge. Deer, birds, and even the majestic elephant bowed its head low, acknowledging the balance restored. Tears of joy spilled from Jake's eyes as Lily's hand squeezed tighter, her wonder reflected in their shared happiness. They had faced chaos together, knit tightly, and returned to the heart the essence of hope, family, and unity. As they embraced, applause grew from the corner of the village who had also gathered. The echoes of celebration matched the rhythm of the forest, an unbreakable bond forming in the hearts of everyone present. Together, they had confronted fear, embraced healing, and restored balance. Jake hugged Lily tight, and she whispered, "We did it, Dad." "Yes, we did," he replied, a radiant smile lighting up his face, warmth flooding and settling deep inside him. This victory wasn't just about the leopard or even the creatures of the forest. It was about community, love, and standing together against the unknown, knowing that their unity would always shine even in the darkest shadows. As they walked back, the path clear before them, Jake knew this was only the beginning as they forged ahead, towards whatever adventures awaited. You need to subscribe now and not miss these incredible stories. Leave a like immediately to help the algorithm and show your support. And comment below with your feelings about this heartfelt conclusion. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.